We will go ahead and start the meeting. Apologies for being for that unexpected issue, but we will go ahead and start now. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your patience. My name is Tolukwe Kulakwa. I am the program coordinator and head of the UN Global Compact Network Ghana, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our event today. Sorry, 1 second. Go ahead and share my screen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our event today, which is on the West Africa Gender Equality Initiative. And today's topic being how to engage and communicate with stakeholders to support gender equality. I'm going to go ahead and give a very brief introduction to the program, and then we will begin. So I will allow Her Royal Highness to introduce the speakers to us. But first, I wanted to speak about this collaboration. So this is a collaboration between the Royal Boresah Foundation and the UN Global Compact. And this collaboration is on the West Africa Gender Equality Initiative. The West Africa Gender Equality Initiative was it was something that was a program that was started last year. And the goal of the program was to improve gender equality in business. So when we talk about improving gender equality in business, we're talking about having a more gender balance across businesses in all aspects of leadership. When we talk about the boardrooms, when we talk about management, and to really raise the profile of women in very important positions in business. And why is that? Well, the science tells us, the data tells us that companies that actually have more gender balance policies, they perform better. Their companies are more sustainable. And especially during this period of COVID-19, sustainability is more important than ever. Also, gender balance is part of the SDGs. And in the Decade of Action, it's very important that all aspects of the SDGs are really implemented very well so that we can achieve the 2030 goals. Gender equality actually ranks as one of the last performing SDG goal. And so if we really want to achieve the 2030 goal, this is an area that needs specific focus. And at the UN Global Compact, we focus on really helping businesses to lead on some of these issues, because as businesses lead, it assists government, it assists society to push these development goals further along. With that said, I'm going to do a brief go through of the agenda. We have the welcome, an introduction of the program, which we will breeze through. Then I will hand over to Queen Boresah to introduce our speakers. She will be our panelist for today. And then after that, we will have Q&A, and then we will close from there. Before we do that, I wanted to briefly talk about what the UN Global Compact is. So the UN Global Compact is an initiative that was started by the United Nations with Kofi Annan. And his vision was that we should have the United Nations and business come together to put a human face on the marketplace, to change the perspective of business as just being business for profit to business for good. And the UN Global Compact way is to help companies reach their sustainability objectives by adopting 10 principles in these areas. These areas are in human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. And we believe that when companies adopt these practices, they themselves will become better companies. And as they become better companies, they will begin to contribute to a better world. So this program is based on the women empowerment principles developed by the United Nations, by UN Women. And briefly, there are 7 principles that guide the framework for how all businesses should operate. Sorry, how all businesses should operate, and how businesses should promote these principles to improve well-being of women, and also to improve their role in business in all aspects. So we have, for example, the first principle being promoting leadership, the second one, inclusivity, the third one, health, safety, and freedom from violence, the fourth one, education and training, the enterprise development, supply chain and market practices, community engagement, and transparency. And today we're talking about how do we engage? How do we engage and ensure that all stakeholders are aware of these principles? So I'm going to go ahead now and introduce Queen Boresah, who is the Executive Director of the Queen Royal Boresah Foundation, to take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Glad to have us all here. Sorry for the little mishap a couple of minutes ago. So we are resharing the link, hoping to have other participants to join because they were given the old link. So let's hang on. Other people will join as we proceed with the meeting. But I'll introduce myself and then introduce this collaboration and our speakers we have now. So my name is Queen Boresah, and I run the Boresah Royal Foundation. Our key focus is to put smiles on the faces of all. And when I say all, I put into bracket the girl child or women empowerment. It was once said that if you educate a woman, you educate an entire nation. And therefore, we believe that the liberation or development we seek as Africans, as humanity, as the world, revolves around the woman. So what can we do to lift a woman up, to lift a sister up, to put a woman in that economically sound position to be able to influence not only herself, but her entire family and her generation. And therefore, the women agenda or the gender equality agenda is our key focus. And we've worked on this for the past couple of years, almost 8 years. And yes, with the support of all partners and speakers on board, we are soaring higher and higher. And therefore, today we are partnering with the UN Global Compact to speak on how we can have women well positioned in our corporate organizations, how we can have women run the affairs of, of corporations to take the corporations to the level, the desired level we want them to be. And so we have seasoned speakers who are into academia, who are into this women and gender business all these years to speak to us on the topic at hand. It is an initiative we are going to run for a couple of months. So this is just our first session. And therefore, as time goes on, we'll alert you on the subsequent meeting days, and then you could join us. So today we have a very senior lecturer and a gender specialist who lectures at GIMPA, and she's here to share with us her views on the topic at hand, gender equality, what is the role of the woman, and how far can we assist the woman for her to go far. I would give you just a brief intro of our speaker, who is Dr. Augustine Akono, a senior lecturer at GIMPA. So this is just a brief profile of her. She's a gender, public, admin, and development specialist with over 12 years experience. She's a senior lecturer and the head of Liberal Arts Department, School of Liberal Arts, GIMPA. And she's a 2018 African Oxford Fellow at the Balbachnik School of Government, University of Oxford. And she's done this over a couple of years. And so we are privileged to have you, Dr. Akono, to share with us your experience on this fight we are all fighting, gender equality, giving women a seat at the boardroom table, like Fatima would put it. And so over to you, Dr. Augustine Akono. Doctor will want permission to share his screen as she takes us to the discussion. Hi, Dr. Akono. Hello, Dr. Augustine Akono.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Yes, good
Can
morning.
you hear me now?
Doc.
Yes. I'd like to share my screen.
Okay. So
Hello.
yes, okay.
I think
So
someone else is sharing.
okay.
So I'm unable
Tolu,
to.
kindly allow Doc to share his screen. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry, am I the only one we can't hear her?
I can't hear her either. I think she's frozen.
Yep, seems like it.
Yeah, let me send her a message.
So do you want to move on to the next person on the agenda, or what do you want to do?
I think I got disconnected,
No, she's
so let
back.
me connect back. Okay. And then I would look at some of the gender issues at the workplace and how organizations can promote gender issues at the workplace, and then I will conclude. I begin with this interesting quote from the president of the World Bank. It says that human capital, the potential of individuals, is going to be the most important long-term investment any country can make for its people's future prosperity and quality of life. Now, if we talk of people, people is made up of both men and women. And therefore, it's important that both men and women are given that equal opportunity, that equity, that fairness in society, at our formal and informal workplaces, so that together we can promote the future prosperity and equality of life. And therefore, it is imperative that country, organizations, individuals prioritize gender issues. Now, we are all aware of the SDGs, and the goal 5 has identified achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls as one of its goals. Now, I concentrate, or I'd emphasize on goal 5.5, which says that it's important to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making in political, economic, and public life. And I believe organizations fall into this bracket. So, how are organizations ensuring that women climb the corporate ladder? Women are found in visible spaces that make decisions that affect the organization as a whole. Now, I briefly talk about gender as a social construct. And as we know, gender is a socialization process, how men and women are viewed. And through this socialization process, we realize that gender norms, gender roles, and gender relations have a very great impact on how we relate with each other. And of course, these roles, norms, and gender relations produce gender stereotypes and also gender-based division of labor. And as we know, gender norms are the natural order of things that unwritten rules that we have in our society, and so we grow up being exposed to what men and women are supposed to do. Nobody tells you the given roles that we are expected to perform. And these norms also translate into the gender roles. And so women are expected to perform certain specific roles, and men are expected to perform other specific roles. So, for example, the natural order of things is that men may be expected to fix the cars, and women are expected to manage the home. And this also tends to affect the relationship that we have with one another, whether in the organization, whether at our informal spaces. And this in turn produces the gender stereotypes, which invariably can lead to gender inequality. Then we talk of a gender-based division of labor, which tends to place value on certain roles that men and women perform in society. So if women are caregivers, it is not really considered as important as a man who goes to work and earns paid income. But if we are to place value on what women do, you realize that that is also equally important. Now, I bring this diagram here to show you how important it is to recognize differences and barriers. So on the racetrack, if you are in the first lane, you are placed at a certain point. And if you're in the 8th lane, you go deeper into the curve, right? Because as you run, those in the first lane have an advantage. So it's important that you position whoever is in the 7th and 8th lane at a place where they will not be disadvantaged. And the same principle goes for ensuring equity and equality in our organizations. What are the differences among or between men and women? If women are supposed to perform reproductive functions, of course, there's going to be a break in their career. And how do we ensure that this particular break in the career is not going to affect her progression in the organization? So when we talk of gender equality, we say that this gives women and men the same entitlement to all aspects of human development. And this includes economic, social, cultural, civil, and political rights. If you look at our political space now, you realize that you find more men in the higher levels of or the national level politics, and you find that more women are found in the lower or local level politics. Now, if we are talking of gender equality, we want to see the same level of respect. We want to see the same opportunities to make choices. And we also want to see the same level of power to shape the outcomes of these choices. Now, we know that gender equity is about being fair to the respective needs of men and women. And so this may include equal treatment or treatment that is different, but which is considered equivalent in terms of rights, benefits, and obligations and opportunities. So we need to realize that equity is a means to gender equality. Now, the goal of gender equality is not equal numbers, but equal recognition and status. So if we have a committee, it is not enough just to say that, oh, we have 5 men and 5 women on the committee, but what positions are these women occupying on this committee? Do we have the board chairperson as a woman, or we have a woman on the committee, but this woman is a secretary to the committee, or is just a recorder to the committee, who may not have a enough say or may not have that status to make insightful decisions. Now, another goal is not to make them the same, but to highlight and value the similarities and differences that women and men have. Now, how do we situate this in the context of the workplace? There are several gender issues at the workplace, especially where women are concerned. We especially know about stereotyping, where most people most organizations perceive that women may be HR managers or PR executives, but not vice presidents of manufacturing or marketing. And we see this stereotypes right from infancy, where we would already buy toys, let's say guns and maybe tractors for the boys, and we'll find girls being playing with dolls and kitchen sets. So right at the onset, you are socialized into performing these roles. And how do we break some of these stereotypes? The other gender issue that we need to consider is what we call the glass ceiling syndrome, where women can be hired but cannot be promoted to top management. You realize that there are many other barriers that prevent a lot of women from climbing these business ladders. Then we also have this double burden syndrome, where women must balance work and domestic responsibilities, particularly those of us who find ourselves in Africa. You have to juggle about 20 roles of being a woman, taking care of the home, making sure you are working, and then you are still expected to perform other roles. Now we have what we call the revolving door syndrome, where women may have short tenures at workplaces due to uncomfortable environments. So if there's a lot of pressure on you from your social setting, if you think that working long hours at the organization may be unconducive, or if you think that your manager is not understanding, you may decide to quit your job, or you may think of doing a part-time job due to the unconducive environment
We've lost her again.
Looks like we lost Dr. Tina. I'm gonna see if she can get back in.
She's trying to connect back. Hello, hello. Yeah, she's going to join us shortly. She's having some challenges with her network. I think their power just went out, so she's connecting back shortly. So whilst we wait on her to come back, I want us to have a few discussions around what she said so far. Are there any questions you would want to answer? I think she made a very profound statement, and that she says gender equality is not about the goal of gender equality is not about equal numbers, but equal status and recognition for all. So we are not trying to say, okay, let's have 10 women in parliament, or let's have 10 men in parliament. Let the number of women to men in parliament ratio be 50:50 or 1:1. But then equal status and equal recognition. So if a man does something and the woman does same job, the woman should earn same amount. And that woman shouldn't be discriminated upon by virtue of the fact that a woman, she is a woman, or based on her gender. That is how I got her on the goal of gender equality. Hello. Yes. So, and she also said that not to make them the same. So we are not advocating for advancing that women and men should be made the same, but to highlight and value our similarities and our differences. So when I shared the link for this discussion today, somebody came on board to give a very lengthy write-up on the fact that the Bible says the man is supposed to be the head, the woman is supposed to be a helper to the man, and therefore gender activists or feminists are turning the whole thing upside down and trying to take the place of a man, and that she holds a different view to our discussion. So I told her to join in. I'll check if she's here, or if she's on board with us. We can take her concerns, and then we can have more discussion around the goal of gender equality as shared by whilst we wait on her to come on board. So we take your suggestions and opinion on this. Anybody at all who's ready to speak can go ahead.
Can I share something on that, Nana?
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I think this is something we get confused with. And also, I believe there's a whole confusion in terms of what feminism is all about. Because feminism, that's why I don't call myself a feminist, because the conception has been misunderstood out there. It's not about men bashing. It's not about saying that, we're as strong as men, or we're better than men, or, what a man can do, a woman can do better, all those kind of narratives. And religion is a very touchy subject, especially when we come onto the continent, and for those that have faith and belief in it. Being a Muslim as well, we do conform to quite a few things that are written in the Quran. But again, it's all based on understanding of the book and what is being given to you. I don't believe that at any point in time in feminism it says or talks about the fact that you are going to downplay your role as a woman. The issue here is the word submission. And there is different meanings to submission, again, based on what somebody is going to take as a stakeout. Submission does not mean that I bow down to you, or I kneel down to you, or you are greater and higher than I am. We have been, inculcated with a certain value in us. It's not saying that I am weaker than you. What we need to put it in perspective is you could be a CEO of a petroleum company as a woman. But at the same time, when you come home, you're a wife. You are also a mother, you are a sister. What you're saying is you're submitting to that role, not being a submission to a man. So when you come home, you naturally want to nurture and cater for your man. You naturally want to cater for your children. You're not bringing the CEO hat into the living room when you come in. There's a respect, for one another, that you are greater than I am. You're earning more than I am. We come into the space, we still respect each other as partners. So we need to get away from this school of thought that the Bible or the Quran or whatever else comes in says that you must bow down and be submissive. Submission here is about submitting to the role that you wear, the different hats that you play in, and it also applies to men when they come in being high fly presidents of nations. He comes home and he is going to have to listen to his wife. He's going to have to submit to the role that she's the one who's putting that food on that table, and you eat what is cooked for you. So they're just those things that we need to understand, that the equality comes in also in terms of mindset. We need to stop bringing in issues that we're not able to claim or justify. God hasn't come down to literally say that do not respect one another, do not give each other that support.
If I could just add a little bit to what my fellow panelists mentioned, I would want to approach this from a different perspective. I do not have a problem referring to the biblical word about submitting. I don't have a problem with that. And to your point, Fatima, I am assuming that the narrative out there is perhaps sometimes due to lack of understanding, right? And to your point, if we can approach this as being respectful of one another, regardless of whether you're a male or female, being appreciative of one another's value and talents and contributions, being respectful of each other just by virtue of being human beings. If we can use that as the baseline, I think we will be able to navigate through the mindset that for some reason comes across as feminism taking away the man's role. Secondly, I do not ascribe to that word feminism purely because of this kind of perception. However, unless and until we have these kinds of engaging conversations, we will not be able to adequately adjust the mindset, and it will take a generation to do that. So these kinds of forums are helpful to make sure that we can remain in who we are and feel that we are respected for what we bring to the table.
Okay. Those are interesting. Those are interesting thoughts there. Let me give. I have another one from a friend who is saying that this is her take on this whole discussion. She says, a woman is a helper according to the word of God. My question is, how can you be a helper when you are demanding your strength from the one you are here to help, into bracket, man, to provide for their households? So why are we asking for opportunity when in fact, all we have to do is use it because we already have it? That's somebody's thoughts on the entire discussion. Any views on this too? Okay, Dr. Tina is back. So we'll keep that for now. We'll go back and take Dr. Tina's presentation when we have time. So Dr. Tina, over to you.
Thank you very much. My sincerest apologies. We just had a blackout, but it's been restored now. Okay.
Okay,
so,
welcome back, Doc.
Yes. So as I was saying, I chanced on this leadership gap map or graph, and so you realize that as women progress on the leadership ladder, very few women are found there. And then as men progress, you see that at the beginning, you find near parity between men and women. But then as they all progress, you find more women in senior management, and we find more men in senior management and more men in executive management. And I believe that even in the advanced countries, we can see some of these leadership gap. And I don't think it's just peculiar to developing countries or Africa. Now, so why do we need to manage gender issues at the workplace? It's important to note that it is about incorporating complementary and not exclusive talents, about promoting equity between each other and not against each other. That is very important. We play an important complementary role. A good manager must recognize individual potential and harness talents to achieve organizational goals. So if as a manager you notice that a woman is very promising, a woman has a lot of potential, it's important that we encourage and equip such potential and guide them through rising through corporate ladder. And it's also important that managers recognize the many commonplace stereotypes about women and men and employees that exist within the organization. We know that sexual harassment is very common at the workplace, and more women face sexual harassment as compared to men. There are lots of sexist language that is used. How do we ensure that some of these issues are addressed right at the onset? As for the stereotypes, we can have 1,000,001 examples. If we are able to manage gender at the workplace, it may lead to changes in organizations. That's the structure, procedures, and cultures to create organizational environments that are conducive to the promotion of gender equality. Honestly, for me, if I serve on any committee and they are putting up committee members, and when it gets to a secretary, and they would, oh, Tina is the woman, so let her be the secretary. More often than not, I refuse it. I shouldn't be given a role as a secretary because I'm a woman, but roles should be assigned based on your potential as a human being, not because of your gender as a woman, because some of these things promote the gender equity that we are talking about. So when you talk of gender equality, you are creating equal opportunity for everyone. So everyone serving on the committee is open, but then are we looking at equity in terms of the opportunities that are available? Now, the benefits of managing diversity in the organizations are quite a lot. The first is that diverse teams perform better than single gender ones by enabling different viewpoints, ideas, and insights. And it is very true. When you have both men and women on committees, we tend to bring or analyze issues from different standpoints. And this is diversity in concluding decisions in the organization is very critical. It also leads to better problem solving and superior performance. And a Gallup study that was conducted concluded that diverse teams help companies to serve growing diverse customer base. And in fact, now people want to work in organizations who are more receptive to diversity, not just gender diversity, but other disability and other diversity that we can think of. Now, a multiplicity of perspective can spark creativity and innovation and help organizations spot and seize new opportunities. We all view issues from different angles, from different standpoints, based on our experiences, based on our backgrounds. And when you work in teams, you see such potentials evolving, and it can also encourage organizations challenge gender stereotypes. So if we are very prompt in managing gender issues, when the stereotype starts, we'll nip it at the bud and not let it go to affect the organization. Now, what are the strategies that can be adopted to promote gender issues in the organizations? Leadership is key. The political will of the leaders are very important. Most people look up to leaders. They are our role models. We look up to them to steer the affairs of the organization. So if leaders embrace gender issues at the organization, and they send clear messages indicating the values women that indicating the workplace values of women by recognizing and celebrating their contributions of diverse women. It's also important that as management, we enroll women in leadership development programs. In fact, the first thing an organization needs to do is conduct a gender analysis to find out what are the numbers in terms of our workforce, who is in leadership position, what are the numbers, and when we are going for training, how are people selected? So if you want to attain a gender balance, it's important that you identify areas that maybe women need to be trained in. So enrolling women in leadership development programs in the organization is very important. And then also creating mentoring and networking opportunities. So if I hear somebody say that often when women get to the top, they don't want to move their own up. It's important that we create opportunities, formal mentoring schemes for women, and in fact, encourage some of these younger women to also approach women in leadership, women who are in management, and ask them for guidance, to help them move up, and also take advantage of networking opportunities. If there are programs, if there are workshops that we can take advantage of, it's important that we do that. And then it's also important to sensitize managers about gender issues. So actually organizing gender awareness training for all managers so that we are aware of the difference between sex and gender. What are some of the things that leads to gender stereotypes in the organizations? How can we encourage women to climb the corporate ladder? And it's also important to think of flexible work arrangements. In fact, COVID has taught us that this is indeed possible. Most of the banks in Ghana are working from home, except for the banking halls. But those in the offices, most of them are working from home. So if we can have this flexible arrangement post-COVID, I think management needs to think of this flexible work arrangement. And then also providing internal women forums. I always tell, when I facilitate training programs and you have many of the public sector workers coming, I always encourage them that those who have these women's wings of organizations shouldn't just concentrate on celebrating somebody when the person gives birth, supporting somebody at funeral and at weddings. Yes, these social supports is very important. But they also need to think of leadership development programs, presentation skills, what professional development programs can we engage in? Can we get experts in the field? How do we negotiate? How do we manage our time? How do we manage stress? How do we manage a work-life balance? So that this will build our skills and capabilities to take up more leadership roles. Now, we also need to think of professional development of core competencies at individual levels. And this is very important. It's always said that women are not very good at negotiation, but it's a critical skill that we need to have. Now, gender issues need to be an organizational priority. In my preparation, I came across a study which indicated that most organizations commit just about 5% on 5% of their budget, or a very minute portion of their budget towards prioritizing gender issues. Organization leaders need to act to reap the benefits of having gender diverse teams across all levels of their organization. In fact, a lot of studies have confirmed the benefits of having gender diverse teams in organization. And then also identify business units that are less gender diverse, and how do we encourage women to be in these spaces. In fact, this is a systemic problem that we need to go back to our primary schools, our high schools, and encourage more women to take up some of these courses which are perceived to be male-dominated courses. Of course, there's been an improvement, but I think that we need a little bit more push. And then we also need to develop a hiring strategy that increases gender diversity in these units without reducing or ignoring merit. And this is very important. I go back to these internal forums of women. If we get to know that a woman is applying for a leadership position in the organization, those women who are already up there and are mentors should quickly organize a mock interview for these women, push them to review their presentations, to coach them on how to present themselves, how to answer interview questions at these interviews, so that they will be able to perform excellently well. Then it's also important to create an engaged culture that enables men and women to form trusting relationships and motivates them to perform at a high level. This is very important. In fact, if we really want to be successful in this gender agenda, we need to bring the men on board. So ensuring that men and women at the workplace are not suspect of each other. Men shouldn't always be suspicious of women. Women shouldn't be suspicious of men. We need to have an open and frank discussion. Men should be seen as celebrating women when they move up the corporate ladder. And then it's also important that we set inclusive goals and hold managers accountable for diversity. And of course, if they've gone through this training, this is a training on gender issues, this is going to be very successful. Now, I conclude by saying that the 2030 agenda is strongly anchored in human rights standards and principles. And at the beginning, I made mention of the importance of developing the human capital. And the human capital is made up of men and women. So in order to address the pervasive problems of poverty, violence, inequality, and see a transformative shift in our society, we must all commit to taking bold steps outlined in each of the sustainable development goals. And I'm glad that this foundation has taken up the goal 5, and we are running with it to ensure that organizations also play their part. And if we are to be successful in the attainment of the SDGs, then indeed addressing human rights and gender is a necessity for this. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akono. Addressing human rights is a necessity for this. That'll take us to our next presentation from one very amazing woman. She's a mother, she's a mentor, and she is a queen mother. Her works in Ghana has earned her a queenship title. And so if I won't talk about her, if I want to talk about her, we won't finish this discussion. She's a really big woman. She's a former GM of Wilma Africa, the producers of Fright Oil and all the others you know. And she's the African brand warrior. She is a brand person, and she's built a lot of brands in Ghana. She's Kenyan. She's Kenyan, she's Indian, she's Ghanaian, she's everything. So with that much ado, I was trying to go through her profile, but it's a very lengthy profile. I just give you a summary. And she is also a member, chairman of AGI, and she's a chairman for the agribusiness session. So with that much ado, let me introduce to you Madam Fatima Ali Mohammed, the CEO of African Brand Warrior, for her presentation. Nana, over to you.
Thank you, Nana, and thank you very much for having me here in this call today. It means a lot. I also see Dr. Tina, the president of Nations of Women Online. Tina, and yeah, I was listening attentively and taking notes from the previous speaker. My role today is actually to do the opposite, because I like to come from spaces of realism, and I don't know if I'll have much to share, taking into account that the first speaker has actually been able to touch in quite a lot of the areas that I wanted to speak on, but I will probably bring it in from a perspective of making it personal, because I think that's how I'll probably add value to already the first speaker's presentation, and then hopefully the next person can take it from there. So first and foremost, I mean, I did raise this in the conversation that there's going to have to be a discussion around this word feminism, and what it's being misconstrued to be, and the kind of people who don't even understand what it is, even within our own gender. That go out there, holding the flag and trying to fly something else, which then sort of creates a form of resistance from the other half of the gender, who then feel that they're being bashed and then do not want to come in and support. One of the things that I like to do is always touch on things that we may not realize from a storytelling perspective, and how the importance of the power of words are crucial. Today, I know our focus is on the corporate side, but I'd like to start with a little story. So for most of us that ever did history in primary, I'm 48, so I don't know what primary schools teach right now, but I'm hoping they still touch on, civilization and hunters and gatherers. And if we remember history, it taught us that there were hunters and there were gatherers. The hunters were men that went out to hunt animals, hunt for whatever they could to bring to the home state, and women were the gatherers, okay? Now, when we keep talking about wanting to give women an opportunity on the table, or, it's a narrative we're creating on the basis that it doesn't already exist, okay? So I'm bringing this as a story first for the world to understand, and I wrote that in the preamble. 50% of the population is women, which means 50% of the population is holding the sky up. So this sky that we're all under, let there be no assumption that it's only one gender that is holding it up. And secondly, sorry. Oh, okay. And gender equality is not a female fight. Gender equality is a human fight. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to understand. It's a fight for both sides of humanity, whether it's male, female, or whatever else, type of genders that are coming up. So 50% of us hold the sky up. Secondly, if we were the gatherers, then that means women were the creators of civilization. The foods we eat today, it is we who defined, wait a second, this is poisonous, this is not poisonous, this is edible, this is not. So for us to be alive and to continue generations, it came in from women. We created that. If you talk about the calendar, women were gifted by God to have menses, a conversation that we try to avoid and not talk about in terms of blood and periods. But when you look at it also, the calendar was created by women because we knew there was this cycle that something was happening to our bodies every 28 days, every 30 days. So someone sat there and said, wait a second, there's something, and it correlates with the moon, So calendar came into being. So if we can first start understanding that the power was always within us, the power has always been there. So I want to move away from this word of empowerment, and I keep advocating that there is no empowerment we're giving anyone. We're enabling the power that you already have. It's about enabling the power that is already vested in us. And hence the reason, one of the times I always talk about is that forget about bringing women to the table, forget about bringing us chairs, let's build our own tables, let's bring our own women to the table and create our own, sisterhood and our own tribe, because that is one of the challenges we don't have as well. If you look at women organizations, it's always more on the smaller scale, the SMEs that will try to do things from a women helping women, but we try to come in with the food bowl in hand mentality we're trying to support. But when we go to larger corporates, you find it a challenge. Now, I'll give you again 2 scenarios. If you had an organization where the CEO is a woman and you had an organization where the CEO is a man, chances are, and it is we women that do that, we find it very difficult to want to take, a woman telling us to, or telling us off about coming late to work, or, not being able to deliver something on time. But somehow we're programmed and we're okay in the corporate world or in a company world to be able to allow the other gender to tell us off, to make us feel fear, about not being at work on time, whatever. But when it comes to the woman doing that, we have an issue because we expect her to empathize. We expect her to feel our pain. We expect her to think, oh, she's a mother, she should know I'm running late because I've got to feed the kids. Or, I have an issue, I'm not feeling well today. So we as women ourselves are choosing to create that inequality at times of how we want to be understood and how we want to be perceived. So that's why I say my conversation is about coming in from a realist perspective. I don't want to just say that, yes, there is definitely an issue and we need to continue having these conversations. 2030 is just a few years down from now. I can't believe that we're in 2021 and we're still talking about the fact that women need to be given a seat at the table. Women need to be empowered. Women need to, this belongs to us. We are not asking for permission. There's no permission we're seeking. We just take it and we move on with it. I mean, look at what's happened today with, was it yesterday or a couple of days ago with the WTO? There's conversations happening where somebody put it on LinkedIn yesterday and it was an African man saying, can we put her gender aside and can we put the fact that she's out of Africa aside? Let's look at her and respect her for the fact that she's a professional with so many degrees and stuff like that. Now, there were a few people who were coming in to bash it saying, no, let's respect the fact that, she is a woman and let's respect the fact that, she is an African woman. But when I sat and I looked at it and I thought that is so true. We chose to put this label because obviously, as of today, racism and colorism is still an issue. So we choose to bring that in the forefront without respecting the fact that the 2 contenders were women and respecting the fact that these women came in there based on their capabilities, what they were able to deliver. So this comes into play also into the corporate and also into companies and organizations, that how well are we willing to be able to respect women for what they're able to bring in terms of the intelligence. Now, when I touch on to that, I'd like to bring in another scenario. When we compare the 2 genders, women are bogged down. We have so much. I'm a single parent, went through a divorce, had a brain stroke, had to cater for my parents. One of my father passed away, and, I had to hold him like a baby, lift him, to be able to take care of him as a child. Going through the same thing, with my parent being the older child, there's certain expectations that come in. But I've had to fight my way up through everything, okay, because nothing was going to come onto a platter. But it was also in terms of the conditioning I got from my family. It is my father that bought my first period pad when I had my periods, because we had that relationship. My mother worked for the government. My mother was such a powerful woman, but at no point in time did I feel in my environment that one felt challenged over the other. My mother is a lioness, and she was able to nurture and put the family, but at the same time, my father was able to balance. So when we look at this gender equality concerns and the challenges that I feel also is that at the moment we've been focusing so much on the girl child that we're forgetting the boy child. And in the process, we want to be treated as queens, but we haven't taught them how to be kings, So when we talk about equality, that's why these are the kind of conversations, because it's when we nurture them, when we nurture people at the young mindsets is what we end up having, today when we come into the corporate world or in the aspect of companies. Now, I'll give us an example. Again, there's the traditional side to things. There is the professional side to things. But we have been inculcated to think that if you're going to sit in a boardroom and you see tea and coffee being served, automatically the woman gets up and decides, would you like to have some tea? Would you like to have some coffee? You don't see the reversal. It's because we've been conditioned. So there's a conditioning aspect as well. But I don't want to walk out of this conversation feeling that it made me feel any less inferior to want to give somebody a cup of tea. That is the nurturing side of me. Women are nurturers, but I do not want to walk into a boardroom and to be singled out because I'm going to be the only woman in there and to be told, can you serve the tea? There's a difference again in that scenario. So the conversation that we need to have is that how can we respect women, in terms of the talent that they bring? But at the same time, I want to throw the challenge to women in terms of, if you look at men invest in themselves, women don't, because we find excuses, and the excuses are genuine. By the time I leave work, I've got to go home, I've got to cook, I've got to make sure, school work is done. I've got to make sure the house upkeep is done. By the time the weekend comes in, I've got to make sure that, shopping is done. I've got to make sure, that everything in terms of clothing and everything is taken care of, from washing XYZ. But a man will go in, he'll still be able to have boy time, go and have a few beers with his friend after work. He is still going to invest himself on an online course, or he's going to be studying at GIMPA or whatever else, investing in himself. A woman is going to think, wait a second, the money that I've invested, I need to take care of my future, I need to take care of my children's future. So we start getting burdened with a lot of things, yet the man is investing in himself, so that by the time he's trying to climb the corporate ladder, he has all that, in terms of CV content. And for us, it's unfortunate, but we literally hinder our own growth. So the conversation again needs to come in, and I believe that the earlier speaker talked about this, that how can we invest ourselves in terms of more knowledge, giving ourselves more information and areas that we can help ourselves in. Now, I'll give you an example. I mean, the previous speaker touched on the glass ceiling, which is a fact. Promotion doesn't happen. When promotion happens, and again, let's look at the two genders. If a woman was promoted, the chances are that it's going to be said that, she probably slept with the boss, or, it wasn't because of the intelligence that she has, what she brings to the table. If somebody got a very most prestigious jobs happen to always go to men, because we feel, women may not have that ability to be able to balance personal and professional life together. So there's a defined mark there. So we say that this can't happen. But when it comes to the corporate side of things, I'm going to give you a personal example. I was on a $30,000 salary per month. I climbed from, I remember earning $100 salary a month, and I climbed up to $30,000. But I fought my way. Why? Because I walk into a boardroom, and there is that saying where they tell you, oh my God, the devil is also going to say that she has woken up. That is the kind of person I am. I walk in and I make sure you will feel my presence. Okay, we need to move away from this whole thing of being timid. And no, I need to be, I will only speak when spoken to. So it's again about how we condition, how we get nurtured, and what is it that we can do in terms of investment. I think there's just so much investment that is required for women in organizations and companies to be able to, for them to have their voice, to be able to speak out what they have, you know, in terms of that mind. And I walked into most of the organizations I've worked in, I've always been the only female in a boardroom, the only female in that boardroom. I have had situations of a previous employer speaking to me and putting his hand on my lap, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, what was that about? You know, so you tend to automatically want to either coil back, or you're going to come out and become a lioness. I've always chosen to be the lioness. You know, it costs you a lot of things. It costs you, I mean, it cost me my previous job because all of a sudden I was too intimidating. I was too strong, you know, to be able to make men not necessarily feel inferior, but to be able to know that I can match you, you know, talent for talent. I can match you, you know, for whatever it is that you feel you can put on those templates. I can match you like for like, if not be better. But we need to move away from this aspect of it being a competition. It is not. We are each bringing something to the table. One of us brings in a softer side, another one brings in a fierce side. We just need to find a way of how we can harness and bring these two areas together and make it workable. But at the same time, I am just saying, if it doesn't happen, women, we create our own tables. We create our own chairs. We bring in the conversations, because 2030 is still going to be there, and we're still going to have these conversations. Change is happening, but it's not happening at the pace that it needs to happen. It's not happening at the pace it needs to happen. I congratulate Ngozi for being, you know, at the WTO, but I know other women that have had to fight to get into other political angles, others that need to fight to become a vice president. Now, moving away from the glass ceiling, one of the areas I'd like to touch on, because I feel that wasn't addressed, is what we call the glass cliff. Now, the glass cliff is just basically in the ceiling. You are only taken up to a certain level, and then either you've got to shatter that ceiling to be allowed to be promoted to become something greater in the organization, or the other one now is becoming the glass cliff. And this again is examples that are happening in reality. Now, glass cliff is just basically like the way you would visualize a cliff. A woman comes to the top of that cliff. Now, how does it happen? Most organizations or corporates are finding that as they get into situations where the financial balance is not right, or there are challenges from a PR perspective or image of an organization that is not working, they tend to recruit women from within the organization. And what do? They recruit the women and they make them, you know, the positions, they'll bring them as the GM, the CEO, or the presidents of organizations. So they do not go out looking for women to hire for that position. So what do? They use a safety mechanism. Let's use one of our own because she's one of us. We will boost her ego. We'll make her feel that, you know, she's achieved something, and they bring her to the top. And guess what happens? The woman turns around the organization. They are, if you look at, there's so many examples globally that are happening right now. Women come in, they turn the organization, they churn it, they make it more human to human. They're able to do all the things that they need to do. And once they have turned the company around, what happens? They get thrown off the cliff. They get thrown off the cliff, and this is the new syndrome. It's the glass cliff syndrome. And what do then? They replace her. They do not replace her with another woman. They replace her with a man. And they do not replace her with a man from within the organization. They replace her with a man from outside the organization. So what does that mean? That you choose to pick someone from within the organization because she's one of your own, she's family. Let's boost her. Let's just show her that, you know, we're giving her whatever is required. But when it comes to now throwing her out, let's go and source for somebody from outside and pay him more. Okay, so this is why these conversations need to happen. They need to happen often, because the more we keep putting them on the back burner, we have a conversation, it's a nice to have a conversation, we move away, and then it gets forgotten. We need to find ways to have this conversation and have them I mean, companies now need to start reporting on the numbers that they have in terms of women. Let them start reporting. Let it become part of the requirement to funding. Let it become a requirement to you having access to capital. Let us make these kind of challenges thrown in there so that we can start having this movement happening, moving to action and not just being about talk. A lot of companies are signing up on SDGs and saying that, we're part of the SDG and all that. But when you ask them, tell us how many women you have on the board. 0. Tell them to tell you how many women that they have in senior position. It's probably 2 out of 100. So we need to start putting actions, and there need to be timelines to these conversations. Otherwise, it'll all gain dust, and we're going to come back here and continue to cry for not being given that opportunity. The other area that I quickly want to touch on is that in terms of self-investment for women in corporates, women in companies, let's do whatever it takes. Even if you have 100 CDs a day, put 20 CDs aside for yourself. Keep that, create a pot, and then let's get to the end of the month and say, hey, listen, I'm going to go right now. There's so many online courses that are happening on Harvard, on Udemy, on Oxford, on Coursera. Let's ask ourselves how many of us have taken the time to say that I am willing that while the family's gone to sleep, I will sit after 12 o'clock midnight and I will put 1 hour of my time in that education. So we're going to have to take certain decisions for ourselves. Nobody's going to come and give it to you. Nobody's giving nobody nothing. Okay, so we need to have these conversations, and I want us to just really be real about these issues. They are issues that are giving us, nightmares. We're not able to sleep as a single parent, coming out from a corporate world, now doing things for my own. I sit there and I wonder, okay, how am I going to put her through university? How am I going to do things? Okay, because as soon as I go out there, I have been blessed because I came from a corporate platform, so I may be a face to reckon with. I might be able to have conversations that may be challenging, but this opportunity will not be given to other women, who are trying to start up their own business, who are trying to go out on their own. It is hard for them, and it is a reality. So we need to find a way of how we can be sisters keepers and be able to help ourselves go up. But at the same time, let us also appreciate the fact that gender equality is about saying, can I be paid the same? Can I be given the same opportunity on the table? Can I be given, if is a position for a vice president and you find 2 women and 1 man coming in, it should not be the man only that's been given this opportunity. So we should stop the conversation of it not being about, if you're able to lift a table as a man, I appreciate you, I bow down to you, lift the table. I'm happy with that, you're a strong man. But gender equality does not mean that now, oh, you women want your rights, then now you come and pick the table. That's not the conversation we're having. We're having a conversation about the intellect. We're having conversations about opportunity. I will still bow down to you to say that you can carry the gas cylinder, you drive the car better than I do. I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue. But when it comes to conversations of intellect, we're one-on-one. That's my submission for today, Nana. I'm just hoping we continue to have this conversation because it is needed. We need to move away from, things that are just put as policies and on paper and we don't act on them.
That was a whole package, and I took this statement: women, we create our own tables, we create our own chairs. And gender equality doesn't mean that hey woman, come pick up the table yourself. No. Our time is fast spent. We're supposed to end at 10:30, but because of what happened earlier, we would have to extend our discussions to probably 10:50. So we're going to give one other wonderful woman. You won't believe she woke up at 4 a.m. to join this discussion from the US. So she's been up from 4 a.m. with us, and it's her turn to speak. She's a mother, she's a mentor, she's an amazing woman. She loves Ghana. I keep saying she loves Ghana. I haven't seen anybody who loves Ghana like this woman. And her love for Ghana is legendary. That is why she's up this early to join us have a discussion. She is Dr. Dorothy Asamoah Siang. She is a clinical associate professor at the Department of Organization and Human Resources, faculty director of global programs, University at Buffalo as a School of Management, the State University of New York, Dr. Dorothea Samuel. Glad to have you, and over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Madam Fatima. That was on point. And just so the guests here know, we haven't met before, so I didn't share my notes with you. You didn't share yours with me, but it's a perfect transition to what I'm about to share. So thank you. Thank you all for having me. It is my pleasure. I'm a Ghanaian. It's in my blood. That doesn't change, no matter where I live. So it is fine. First of all, yes, as Queen said, thank you. My name is Dorothy. I am officially Dr. Siawa Sama, but my favorite name is Mami. So for those who know me, they know when you call me Mami, then I know I'm home. I have the distinct honor of being an educator, just like my mother, even though I never wanted to be a teacher. But we'll talk about that later. I do have to say a few things as we go through. I like engagement, so I'm going to ask you to be ready to send a message on the chat so that you can enable Queen to see some activities and some engagement, okay? So be ready to type away. What is one word that people use to describe you? When they think about you, what do they say? What do they remember? Keep sending it because I want to see it. Some are saying fierce. Someone said determined. Yes, keep sending it because I want to read it. Responsible. Yes, intimidating. I want to know. I want to just keep sending it because I want you to think about, especially when there is no one in the room, what one word do you think people use to describe you? Just one. Passionate. Phenomenal. Okay. All right. Keep sending. There are more than 5 people on the chat now. So we should be sending it. Okay. Selfless. All right. Okay. Dark. Oh, all right. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Keep sending. All right. I do want to say that I am approaching this conversation as somebody who studies organizational behavior and somebody who is passionate about professional development. And so it ties right back into what my sister Fatima mentioned. And I'm hoping that at the end of my session, I'll make it quick. You will leave this discussion with some action steps on what you're going to do instead of always starting the same conversation over and over again. So the first thing I want to share with you is the whole situation issue with the UN goals. They're all true. And to Madam Fatima's point, I like to be realistic. I like to be practical. And so as we go to the table, as we raise our hands and demand to be at the table, what are we? The parents or the caregiver as well, providing for the. As we come to the table, what are we bringing to the table? Are we expecting that things will be handed to us? Or are we coming to the table with our own unique contributions? Now, Madam Fatima shared her journey. She started from where she started from to where she got to. I can argue, and I'm just meeting her, that she didn't just show up. She came prepared. And I'm hoping that as we have this conversation today, we will leave this session with, again, some concrete steps on what we intend to do to make sure that when we are at the table, we are not just seen, but we will also be heard. So I'm going to go through just 4 words. And these words are words that you are familiar with, but I'll be asking you a lot of questions so that we can learn together. My first word is ability. What comes to mind when you think about the word ability? The dictionary says that ability is the quality or state of being able to do something, right? So as women, as men, as human beings, period, in this discussion, what is your ability? Now, notice I didn't ask what is your qualification. I asked what is your ability? What are the things that you come to the table with? If you are an educator, how often do you make sure that you change you adjust your teaching method to meet the changing times? If you are a clinician, how often do you get your own professional development to make sure that you are up to date with the science? If you are a hairdresser, how are you making sure that amongst all the hairdressers down the street, yours is the only place that I will come to? What is your ability? I'm approaching this in a simpler way. There are other words that goes with ability, your capability, your depthness, your skillfulness, your aptitude. What is it? If we are asking to be at the table as women, if we are asking to be at the table as peers, what do we bring to the table? Is it just because we are able to wear a skirt? Or are we coming with a skill that we have continued to hone it? I want to just give you a brief background about who I am. I was born, raised in Ghana. I finished the best university in Ghana, University of Science and Technology. I came to the US at a young age of 5. I'm saying that as a joke. But when I got here, I had to go back to school. I had to go back and get my undergraduate degree again. I had to spend 10 years in school because I knew that to be able to sit at the table, I had to get what I needed to get in order to make a contribution. So go back for 4 years undergrad, 2 years of my MBA, 4 years of my PhD, work for over a decade. It just didn't show up. You have to do the work. And so if we do not garner that courage, that determination to get the kind of skill set that we need, we will continue to be down the ladder. And yes, I agree. I agree about all that was said and all that we are thinking. Yes, it is not the same at the top, but we should start from somewhere. Get that skill that you need, whether you're a seamstress, whether you're a professor, whether you are a nurse, whatever you want to do it with all your might. What is your ability? My second thing is, what are your strengths and talents? You don't have to go too far to look for that. That is embedded in you. It comes with you. It is part of who you are. When I talk about strengths, what am I referring to? It is your ability to produce a positive outcome through a near perfect performance. Oftentimes you do it without even knowing, all right? And I will be posting a document for you to use on your own accord to test out what it is that comes naturally to you. When it comes naturally to you, oftentimes you don't even give it the credence it deserves. So what do I mean? For example, as a child, I always was the one who was known in the family to be reading instead of being in the kitchen cooking. I'm a girl, but I love to read. It doesn't mean that I do not know how to cook, but that wasn't my preferred place to be, okay? So I love reading. What does it do? It converts to a lot of learning. I am never tired of learning, all right? So it's a natural inclination, but I never wanted to be a teacher. My mother was a teacher, a number of her siblings, her cousins, teachers, and one thing I noticed, they never have money. So I didn't want to be a teacher. But what I didn't realize was that there are some things that come naturally to you. And even though it may not be in the title, you get drawn to it. So life happened, and I found out, oh, teaching is actually the best career when you're raising children. And so here I am. But when I stand in class to teach, I do not teach as a teacher I teach as someone who sees potential in people and wants to develop them to get to their full potential. So what is it that comes naturally to you? You need to find it. And once you have found it, follow it. And you'll be able to develop something unique for yourself. So whether in the boardroom or at the kitchen table, as you're raising these children, as you are managing work, life, all of it, do not forget the things that come naturally to you. Whenever I'm in situations, I like to sit back and observe people. And based on that, I utilize the kind of observations I use, and I'm able to bring things and people together. That's natural to me, but may not be for someone. So in your role in the boardroom, even wherever level you are, how are you able to connect those dots and bring people and things together? My third word is adaptability and flexibility. Our world is changing and changing fast. And Dr. Tina mentioned about flexible workspaces. Yes, as women, most of us are managing homes, taking care of the elderly, taking care of children. So we are in this sandwich situation. We are also working, we are schooling, we're all of the above. But in the workplace, like I said before, how are you known for? Are you one who is so set in your ways that you have no room for adjustment? Everything has to go your way, otherwise the world has come to an end. Or are you open and willing to making adjustments to fit the organizational goal and also to make sure that you make your voice heard? And the last thing I want to talk about is professionalism. You can be professional. That should be something that we should be known to do. Professionalism in the way we present ourselves, professionalism in the way we engage with others, professionalism in the way we treat our peers, professionalism in just everything around us. Dr. Tina mentioned and Madam Fatima mentioned about self-improvement. We need to get those kinds of skills when we need it. Getting skills in how you present, being able to negotiate, managing your time, managing your anger, even self-care and personal care, not forgetting mental care. It is important that we practice these things. And when we don't have it, look out for ways that we can be able to develop ourselves as individuals, because frankly, professional development is personal development. And when you are able to develop yourself, then of course you can be able to raise your hand and request and demand in professional way to be able to sit at the table. If you are not professional, even in the way you conduct yourself, no one wants you at the table. So yes, we ask for equity, but we need to be able to have the ability to do what it is that we need to do. We need to think about bringing our strengths to whatever that we do, be adaptable and flexible with our changing lives, and invest in ourselves so that we can be professionally developed. We will persevere, we'll be resilient and be able to actually function when we are given the opportunity. Otherwise, we can go all the way to the top, and the only way backwards is downwards because we don't have what it takes. So let's pause and take a look at our own selves and get what we need to get done so that we will be able to be at the table. 3 takeaways from me to you, and I'm hoping that it is something that you will actually do. My first thing is, what are your goals? Write them down. Don't think it in your head. Actually write it down, because when you write it down, you will see it. This scripture, write it down so you can see. So for today, I challenge you, write down 3 goals that you have. And the next thing is, I challenge you to make a decision, 2 things that you do differently because of this conversation. You've heard from 3 of us, 2 things. And the last thing I ask of you is 1 thing you do differently, starting today. Not tomorrow, but today. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Write your goals. 3, 2 things you will do differently. Number 2. And number 3, 1 thing that you will do starting today. So thank you for your time. I know that we have exceeded the time you expected, but I hope you found value in this conversation. If you want to, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and I will respond to you. Thank you again. I yield back to Queen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dorothy. That was another exciting presentation. And I would want to term it the SAP approach. So what are your strengths? What are your abilities? How adaptable are you? And your sense of professionalism is what you put you on the pedestal you want to get to as a woman. So if you're able to identify all these 4 steps of personal growth and development as a woman, then you can be where you want to be. Thanks to all our 3 key panelists who give us very interesting discussions on the topic at hand. There are a few questions in the chat room. I'll take a few, but let me welcome on board my boss, Nana Joa Window. She's here. And then Dr. Tina, President of Nations of Women, is also here. And all Queen Mothers here, you are all welcome. Thank you very much. So the first question says that, I think I want to read a question from our chat room. I'm picking the questions randomly. So there's one that asks about whether or not gender equality is reserved for the elite. It says that's from Salma Faris Ayuba. She says, women empowerment urban-centric? Is it reserved for the elites? How do we make it more inclusive for the rural folks? How do we make it more inclusive for the rural folks? And I know somebody who has been doing this for over a decade. She's Nana Joa Window. And so I want to throw this question at her to help us answer this question. Nana Window, if you are here, can help us with the question. Okay, so while she prepares to join us, we at the Boresah Royal Foundation have and our target is not to empower just people in the south or people in the urban centers, but we are reaching out to all people in the rural areas. So we have a mentorship program for young girls in various communities, and we work through the Queen Mothers. So we have Queen Mothers who are mothers and role models to these people. So we have organized groups of young girls who are on programs. That we have girls and do not want to go back to school. On our program, they're able to go back to school to pursue their education. And so there's a lot going out there, but more can be done and more has to be done to help make this whole agenda get to the rural folks. An answer from Madam Fatima as well.
Sorry,
Fatima,
while Nana comes in, I'd like to answer what Salman has raised, and this is something I've spoken about. Absolutely true, absolutely bang on. When we discuss women empowerment, when we talk about gender equality, the rural woman does not know about this. Whatever we choose to talk about is always about the urban centric, I wouldn't want to say elite, but it's for people more in the urban areas, because who goes out talking about in the rural area things like we need to ensure you get paid the same pay as the farmer, for example, or if you see a policewoman or a government employee in the rural area, where do we go demanding that they need to be paid the same? So the conversations we tend to have in places like this, in conferences, sitting at tables in high events, whatever, it's always more for the urban-centric, peri-urban, and more of people in the working class. The gender equality conversation hasn't been taken into other spheres. It is there, but it hasn't been ridden to that level, because what we do is we discuss things like domestic violence. We focus it on very specific titles that would make sense for the bottom of the pyramid, but we do not bring this as something that is holistic for gender across, but it's more about the platform of where the conversation is happening.
I would would also
Okay.
add that our ability, our strengths, our flexibility, and our professionalism is regardless of what our career is. And so whether it's in the market or it's on the boardroom, these are transferable skills. And yes, to Madam Fatima's point, we have to be sensitive to the context with which we talk about these things so that we can make it relatable to somebody who is in the rural versus urban, to ensure that we are enabling them instead of excluding them in this pie.
Okay, thank you very much. So the question from Salman. Salman is a man, and there are a lot of men who have joined us for this discussion. I'll take one more question from another man. He is and Owusu says, I think Owusu's question is in two folds. No, Nicholas says, is there mentorship program to develop and build leadership skills in women? How well is Ghana doing in Africa in terms of gender-based equalities? And then let me add that of Owusu. He says, what is the difference between gender equity, gender equality, and women's empowerment? Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? So these are our colleague men who want to know the difference between this whole gender thing we are talking about. So it's open to all panelists to answer.
Dorothy, do you want to do it, or Dr. Tina?
I think
Okay.
Dr. Tina is a scholar for equity, so please take it.
Okay, thank you for the question. When we talk of gender equality, we are talking of providing the same opportunities for both men and women. And when we talk of equity, we are referring to fairness. So let me put this in context. If we had a university professor who teaches, let's say, physics, and then we have all the animals there, we have, or biology, we have the elephant, we have the fish, we have the bird, we have the monkey, and he has a tree there, and he says that in my class, I want all these animals to climb this tree. So what has he created? He has created equality of opportunity for everybody to take the test. But what he hasn't created for is the equity, that is the fairness in administering that particular test. Because if you are saying you have a tree, an elephant should climb the tree, an elephant cannot climb the tree. If you are saying that a fish should climb the tree, a fish exists in water, a monkey can climb a tree, a bird can easily fly onto the tree. So when you are creating interventions, it's important that you look at the differences and the abilities of each and everyone to help you come up with that intervention. So you can create equality of opportunity, but not necessarily creating equity in that opportunity. Okay, so equity is about fairness, and equality is about creating the same opportunities for everybody. So you could go into a locality and say that, oh, I'm building a school for people in this village. So you build a 6-classroom block and you are done. And then you realize that every month, girls miss out on school for 3 days. Then you go into the issues and you note that when they are in their menses, there is no restroom. You did not build a restroom for that particular school. So they would rather stay home because there's nowhere for them to change themselves, or they don't even have that money to buy sanitary towels. So you have created equality of opportunity for everybody by building a school and providing education. But what you haven't accounted for are the differences and the abilities between boys and girls. So somebody who is incorporating equity would think of, okay, let me build a restroom which would serve the needs for both boys and girls. Let me see if I can create a fund that will provide sanitary towels for these girls. So you have considered their differences and you have created that. Now, when we talk of women's empowerment, it's important that we note that it is not taking power from men. That is not what we are talking about. When we talk of women's empowerment, we are talking about how can we build self-confidence in women. And I think Dr. Sia Samoa has given an excellent presentations on what we bring to the table. So if you want to be empowered as a woman, do you need to upgrade your skills? Perhaps not even going back to school, but if you are a business woman, you sell, do I know some basic bookkeeping practices? Do I need some negotiation skills? How do I separate my costs, the money I use to purchase, and how do I spend my profit? So it's about self-confidence and also changing the rights. Women should be able to make their own decisions and their own choices. So when we are talking of women's empowerment, we are talking of a redefinition of power to emphasize power within and then power to women. So don't let us get that notion that when we talk of women empowerment, we are taking power from women. It is about ensuring that women have the choices available to them, and then they should be able to make a determination of those choices that are available to them. I think there was another question about, he asked 3 questions, right?
Sorry.
What was the 3rd question?
The 3rd question has to do with whether or not how well Ghana is doing in Africa in terms of gender-based equalities, and if there are mentorship programs for girls development in Ghana.
Well, I think I don't think there's a national program, but we know that there are different things that are going on. I know many NGOs would talk about mentoring girls. This lady, Bridget Jogbenuku, she has a foundation that actually grooms young children. So it is not a national effort, but I know that individual people are making these efforts.
So if I could add to Dr. Tina, your point, I think that it's important we do not forget the fact that we ourselves can also step up. As Madam Fatina had said, we have the power in us. And so if you do not see a mentoring program in your community, you can also begin that. If you know of others in your community, in the churches, and we do it without necessarily maybe calling it mentoring. But if in fact we want to practice what we preach, we should be like it is stated in the Bible, how Eunice did, look around and bring younger people who either are going through different phases of life and mentor them. Because as you do it, it builds, success begets success, and others will mentor the others. And it shouldn't only be women, men as well, because I like the analogy that Madam Fatima mentioned, that they are gatherers and they are hunters and we are gatherers, but we need one another. And so this conversation cannot be one-sided. The other thing I want to add is to challenge organizations to invest in your people. Providing professional development sessions helps your people to help you. Now, we as a society, and I say this with all due respect, cannot always wait for it to be free. It has to cost us. If it is that important, providing these kinds of opportunities for your women and men to be enabled to do the work that you've asked them to do will benefit you and will help the bottom line. I'm a business professor and everything comes down to money. But if you invest in people, the bottom line will go in the direction that you want more than you can imagine. So that's the little bit I wanted to add to that question.
Okay. all too soon we have come to the end of this wonderful discussion. I think it's a discussion that shouldn't be a one-off discussion. It should be ongoing. So in the coming months, in the coming days, we'll be coming back to you again for a bigger and a better session of wage initiative. We had somebody asking why we didn't have male panelists. Yes, we did have male panelists. They couldn't make it for the program. So gender balance, we're balancing our choice of panelists as well. So I'll hand over at this point to Tolu from the UN Global Compact to give us a brief wrap, and then we can come to the end of this session. Tolu.
No, thank you, Your Highness. And thank you to all of our panelists today. Very excellent presentations, very good insights, and very valuable lessons also for our companies and other organizational members to really take a lot of what you said and apply it. And one of my biggest takeaways was that the societal view of women has been that we have to empower her, but the power comes from within. At the same time, there's a role for business and leaders to nurture that and to build that confidence so that they be able to contribute back to the company or to the organization to their fullest ability. Another thing that was mentioned was professional training programs for women and investment in women. This is something at the Global Compact that we very much advocate. That there is a cost to this, that it is an investment, but it's an investment that brings back significant returns to the company and enhances the sustainability of the company. And then from a more macro view, this is something that as a whole benefits benefits the business, benefits the sector, and benefits the economy. Also, what was mentioned was that women make up 50% of the population, 50%. And yet, when it comes to top tier management position, there's talk of that ceiling. We only see, 10% of less than 10% of women on boards, for example. Less percent of 20% of women at high executive positions. And so these are things that we have to think about when you have to change. A brief note, I was in Portugal last year. Actually, this was 2 years ago. And it was the same kind of discussion that we heard from the Portuguese network and some of the businesses there. They mentioned the fact that more women actually graduate in Portugal at higher education when it comes to masters and PhDs. More women actually graduate than men, and yet we're seeing fewer opportunities for them when you look at the business outlook in Portugal. So those are things that we have work to do. But definitely programs like this can help really spread that information and really help businesses understand the role they have to play, and then also understand, what is the way forward and how to plan and really bring policies that would really bring this to fruition. So I would like to again thank our panelists for this wonderful discussion. I would like to also thank Queen Boresah and her foundation for partnering with us to make this program possible. For those who are interested in the video of this session, this was a recorded session, please write to us. Rhoda's email is in the chat, so write to her and we will get that to you. And of course, for other information about the UN Global Compact, please visit our website, unglobalcompact.org. So again, I thank you all for coming today, and we hope to hear from you again. And I wish you all a very happy morning, day, afternoon, evening, wherever you're coming from. So take care.
And thanks so much, Dr. Dorothy, for the sacrifice for waking up this early. Thanks to Madam Fatima. Thanks to Dr. Tina for the short notice. And thanks to all of you who joined us, Philip from all the way from Saudi Arabia, all those from US and all those in Ghana. We say we love you. And yes, it's a collective goal. Together we can fight this fight, and together we can make the life of the girl child and the woman better. Bye-bye to everybody.